Hey everyone, welcome to tnSportsChat presented by Lehigh Valley Health Network. I'm Patrick Matsinko with Emmett, McCall. We're back after a couple of weeks, which means that we have quite a bit of action to catch up on. One of the biggest things this past weekend was the Coal Cracker Wrestling Tournament at Panther Valley. Something that's just kind of continued to grow and grow and grow. This year was the biggest yet. Almost 40 teams and 6 of our area teams that were also involved. Had a lot of success, had a lot of fun, busy 2 days for everybody, but definitely one of the things that's kind of the highlight of the season for area wrestling fans, I think.
Yeah, it's nice to have 6 of our area teams all in the same spot on the same weekend. You have Colonial League teams, Schuylkill League teams, chance to see them all together. You were up there Saturday, you got a chance to cover it, and have a nice feature in Thursday's Times News. We're going to have a feature on Tim Robb, the former Panther Valley wrestling coach, former Northern Lehigh wrestler. He basically puts that whole Coal Cracker tournament together, everything from getting concession stand workers to, everything else, organizing as the day's going on, and it's a pretty cool feature to read.
It's a huge undertaking. It's a huge thing. I know current Panther Valley head coach, first-year head coach Zane Bacher mentioned just kind of how appreciative he is and thankful that Tim does as much as he does. And Tim mentioned it too, but I mean, he's a guy that's coached for over 2 decades. He's got a lot of connections. He's built a lot of relationships. And you can kind of see how much that helps with what they're able to do with a tournament like that.
And the interest they get from all over the state, basically, pulling teams in to come all the way up to Panther Valley for
and
this.
Zane mentioned it to me that they went to a tournament in Carlisle. They mentioned it, I don't even think he had to say anything, but it's like, oh, hey, you're Panther Valley. Don't you guys host that Coal Cracker tournament? And even Zane mentioned that he was kind of taken aback a little bit, not realizing that people from that far away are aware of what they're doing at Panther Valley. But it's a really cool thing. And again, for a school Panther Valley size to be hosting a 2-day event like that, there's also a JV tournament. They utilize the high school, the intermediate school. I mean, you have placement matches for 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, and it's cool too because the way they do the finals is they're running 2 mats at the same time, kind of start at heavyweight and then at 106, and they go, and then they just kind of meet in the middle. So you're running 2 finals matches at the same time, which is really cool, and it kind of puts the spotlight on them where you're not running all the other medal matches around what's happening as the finals are going on. So spotlight's on them, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, it's a great tournament. Turnout was great.
Great timing for the tournament because now we have district team duels coming up this week, and then in 3 or 4 weeks down the road, we're going to have the district individual tournament. So, I mean, this is really helping the competition they get up there, helps all these teams and individuals get ready for the postseason.
Exactly, and that's what I know, again, Tim mentioned about just kind of the timing of it, that it's really a perfect time where you can kind of see where you're at. If you're a little bumped, bumps and bruises, you're a little banged up, you have time to kind of heal and recover, get ready for the postseason. But it can also be kind of a launching pad, which I think we saw a little bit this past weekend with Jim Thorpe, Derek Hunter. Really impressive performance in the 285-pound weight class, winning that title. He had a pin in the final, avenged an earlier loss in the semis with a decision victory to reach that final, but only a sophomore, but wrestling really, really well, and he seems to be rounding into form here as we're kind of getting to the postseason. We also had Palmerton's Lucas Chrisman reach the 138-pound final, lost a tough match in overtime. He was right there, and I know Justin Peterson said it, Palmerton coach, afterward, that he lost, but he knows, I think, that the kid that he lost to is Avery Bassett of Midwest is beatable. So that's kind of one of the things that, it was a tough loss, but he's right there. So we also obviously had a number of other kids medal come through that tournament and do well in the JV tournament.
I think we have 15 or 16 kids from our area that medaled in the tournament, which is nice. and kind of leads us into what we're talking about a little, the postseason coming up this week. Thursday night at 3 different spots in the district. Team duels start. Liberty is hosting a number of teams there. There's also action at Northampton and Northern Lehigh high schools, and we have Times News area teams at all 3 locations.
Yeah, and really, I guess the first kind of shot that teams can get at that taste of postseason glory. Really, Lehighton, of our area teams that qualified, earned the highest seeding. They are 5th. All teams are in the 2A bracket, and then we have Tamaqua, we have Jim Thorpe, and we have Northwestern. So those are the 4 teams.
Lehighton will be at Northern Lehigh wrestling Pine Grove. That's the 5-12 bout. Winner of that gets Monterey area, who's the 4th seed. They'll be all at Northern Lehigh Thursday night. At Northampton, we have Jim Thorpe, the 8th seed, and Caddy, the 9th seed. They get the honor of whoever wins that gets to wrestle number 1 seed Saucon Valley. So, but if you win that 8-9, you automatically guarantee yourself in a shot on Saturday.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. You know, going against whoever wins that has to face Caddy, which is a tall order, a huge order. But the big bonus out of that is you get to wrestle Saturday as well. And then the last one is 7-10 matches, Tamaqua Northwestern. They're wrestling at Liberty. You'll be there. And the winner of that gets Notre Dame.
Which, again, these Colonial League teams have been really good. We've seen that. I think we just saw that too in the league tournament with Saucon winning the title again. But Wilson, another Colonial League team, Notre Dame, all
the top 3 seeds
are very, very good.
Right.
Wilson just knocked off Notre Dame in the league tournament. So it's interesting, and again too, when you just get through that first round, you know you're coming back Saturday, and maybe eventually kind of force your way into a true second place match,
right,
which we had a few years ago with Lehighton and Northwestern. So just got to kind of survive in advance in a lot of ways. But yeah, so that'll be Thursday, and then continue over into Saturday.
Saturday they bring everybody back at what? Liberty?
Freedom
High School. So all the 8 remaining AA schools that are still alive and the 8 remaining AAA schools are all going to be there at Freedom.
So that'll be hopefully a busy day Saturday. See how our teams fare coming through Thursday, but that'll be sort of on tap for Saturday. And then, like we mentioned, the individual tournament not far away. Beginning February 22nd. So that'll take us back to Freedom, Liberty, and then we'll go on to regionals from there. But that's kind of where we're at on the wrestling front. So obviously very busy, but basketball, girls and boys, has been much the same. So,
yeah, winding down, only a week and a half left in the regular season. Then the following week after that, league playoffs will take place, and then the week after that, the start of districts will be going.
Yeah, and I know we mentioned it a few weeks ago, but obviously we have a lot of teams that are already locked in to the postseason. We have several others that
I think we have 6 girls teams locked in and 5 boys teams locked in, and that's 4 boys teams that have clinched a spot based on winning at least half your league or overall games, which overall 11 is the magic number because everybody plays a 22-game schedule. So, but in addition to that, there are each bracket now has a minimum number of teams they accept. So even teams that aren't 500 can get in if you have a 4 or a 6 team or an 8 team bracket and you have enough rating points. Even if you're not 500, you get in. We were looking at it the other day. There's a decent chance, or at least a chance, that we get 9 of our area boys teams in. Even teams like Lehighton, who's 6-12 and can't qualify based on 500 record anymore. Yeah. They can get in as the 7th or 8th seed in their class in the bracket. So most of our teams, if they're not already in, are still alive. I think we only have 1 or 2 teams between the girls and the boys that are totally eliminated. So it's going to be an interesting last week of the season. And
that's, I guess, the case where all you want there is a chance.
Yeah.
You never know what can happen. You think about maybe a week or 2 ago where Lehighton, like you mentioned, it played a Panther Valley team that is locked into the postseason, and Lehighton came away with a win in that game.
And a huge win. I think if Lehighton wins, I think they need 2 or 3 more wins down the stretch, but they have some games winnable games that if they happen to get in, they'll look back on that Panther Valley game as the reason they're in the district playoffs.
Yeah, but in addition to all that kind of team success and where we stand there as far as the postseason, we've had, again, more individual success. We have another 1,000-point score to kind of add to the list.
Brandon Hess, is he our 6th or 7th individual that topped that 1,000 point in his career this year? So it's been a great year for individual milestones.
Yeah, I know Rod Heckman was showing me a paper from a few years ago where we had 3 players hit it in one night, and they all did it in victories. So, I mean, obviously we haven't had that kind of moment yet this season, but it's definitely felt like we've had.
Well, we had one night last Tuesday, that was a crazy night as far as individual accomplishments. Nobody hit 1,000 points, but we had 2 players, Rini Figueroa of Panther Valley, Tyler Fritz of Marion, who both set their school single-game scoring records. This was last Tuesday night, I believe. Rini had 47 in a Panther Valley win over Blue Mountain. Tyler had 45 in a Marion win over Minersville. And they both set their single-season scoring records. Rini topped Jimmy Makovich's mark. I think Jimmy had 45 or 46 at Panther Valley. Rini with 47 beat that. Tyler Fritz had 45. I think Mark Makovic and Chris Decker had 44 was the Marion record, so they both did that the same night. And then also that night, Brandon Hess of Northern Lehigh set his career scoring mark. He scored 33 points in a game that night. So it was just a crazy scoring night. And actually, Justin Hosier of Palmerton scored 31 points that night. Normally, that's like the lead of our roundup. Somebody scores 31, and he's like 4th man in now. Because it was just a crazy scoring night.
And I mean, we've had that. We've had that a lot this year, where we've had a bunch of performances where you almost have to kind of look twice. You know, you see it and you think, wow, how many points? But
speaking of that, Rod Heckman, who does a great job with in our overtime column for our football season, he's the one who kind of researches all the numbers and facts and figures and kind of the last time this happened and that happened. Well, he did a couple of things like that in our Tuesday basketball page. Rich Strack did a nice feature on the newly heightened gym, and Rod and Andy Steinmetz did some of the notes that are underneath that. But one note that Rod came up with that I thought was like really impressive was that last year we had 11 times for the entire season a boys basketball player in our area scored over 30 points. The 3 years before that, in total, we had 6 boys only score 30 or more points in a game. Last year, 11. So far this year, we've had 22 times a boys basketball player has scored 30 or more points in a game, led by Rini Figueroa, Panther Valley, who's done it 6 times by himself. So we did a story a couple of weeks ago. Rich Strack did a story about the offense's output this year, and last Tuesday and last week in general just kind of backed all that up.
Yeah, and it's been fun. I mean, you know, I think, you know, I guess I can't really speak, well, maybe I can from experience a little bit. I had a game this year with the Pleasant Valley Northampton girls that Northampton girls almost cracked 100. I know Panther Valley did it in that win over Blue Mountain.
Yeah, so first time in that win last Tuesday, 101-91 in overtime. Panther Valley won that game. And another fact that Rod Heckman dug up, it was the first time in the last 15 years that a basketball team from our coverage area scored over 100. And I got a little trivia for you on that game, Pat. I know, and I like your trivia. What is the connection to the Times News that game 15 years ago had? That Jim Thorpe scored 100 points against Shenandoah in 2003. There's a Times News connection to that game.
My good friend Brad Hurley must be involved.
Brad Hurley was a junior starting point guard on the Jim Thorpe team that year, and I looked it up before we came on the air because Brad was telling me, oh yeah, I remember that game. I think I scored double figures. So I looked it up, Brad. Jim Thorpe had 5 players in double figures that game. You were not one of them. 7 points. And you know what he's going to tell me, Pat? He's going to tell me, well, I had 20 assists in the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably his season total.
But it's really the intangibles that Brad brings to the court. You can't measure just his impact.
Yeah, that's what he'll tell you. So, but yeah, anyway, that was 15 years ago. They scored 100 points, and Brad Hurley was part of that Jim Thorpe team.
That's incredible, though. I mean, really, just to kind of think about that scoring output that we've had, and again, that it's kind of continued that way all season long, and there are so many different spots that you can kind of point back to during the season. I mean, I remember just typing in that North Schuylkill Panther Valley game in a roundup earlier this year that was in the 80s, and they were in overtime, and it's just, yeah, any given night you can have a performance like that. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yes, and one other thing we wanted to touch on, the Lehigh Valley Health Network Times News Players of the Week. This week, it's we talked about it. Renee and Tyler shared the award. We had co-players for the first time. Both set the school scoring record, so both deserving of that. So congratulations to them. The week before, Ethan Mordaunt of Jim Thorpe wrestler, was our athlete of the week. That was coming off a tournament championship, Schuylkill League championship. He was our athlete of the week, so congratulations to all of them.
And Ethan was third at the Coal Cracker tournament this past weekend.
Suffered his first loss of the season.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, some of these tournaments are just like, the weight classes are so stacked. I know he wrestled Salisbury's Jonah Nissenbaum in that third place match. So yeah, I mean, you're just getting so much talent. But yeah, a great tournament really overall for him and for a lot of those guys. So yeah, definitely one to watch as we go forward into the postseason. So
I think that's it. We covered everything. We've had 2 straight days of no scholastic events. We're taping this on a Wednesday. Tuesday and Wednesday were both wiped out. All schools was canceled the last 2 days, so no events were played. So our schedule's going to be a little busy the next few days, so we should have lots to talk about next week.
Yeah, hopefully everybody can avoid the polar vortex. I just like saying
the word,
yeah. Yeah, so that's all for this week. Tune in again next week. Hopefully we'll have some more recap, kind of roundup of all the action.
You'll be down in Freedom, so you'll have all the information on the wrestling, and we should have even more word on where the district basketball playoffs are heading, who's in, who's out.
Yeah, so make sure to tune in again next week. But that's all for now. So for Emmett, McCall, I'm Patrick Matsinko. Thank you again for watching TN Sports Chat, presented by Lehigh Valley Health Network.